not to have a countdown.
You're so thrown off by OBS.
I am. Fuck OBS. I can't see myself in the lower corner. How do I know if I look fabulous?
You look up there and you try to tell with a wallet-sized image.
No. Absolutely not. So some of you may have wondered last week why perhaps we did not do Sakamoto Ryoma. Well, I'm here to tell ya. This is why. This is why we didn't do Sakamoto Ryoma.
We kind of explained it in last week's episode, too.
I know, I'm just... Not everyone watches the full video, and sometimes people comment before it's done. They'll be like, you did the Shinsengumi, but not Sakamoto Ryoma? And it'll be like halfway through the video, and I'm like, yeah. Yeah, we did.
See, but now we're going to get the question, why didn't we do Hoshui Nizun?
What?
Wait, is it Hoshui Nizun? Okada Izo.
Okada Izo, yeah. Did we not?
No, we're not doing Okada Izo today.
Oh. Fascinating.
I did offer it to you.
Oh. I don't remember that. It must have been a while ago. Oh, you know what? We needed a couple light
horses.
We needed a couple light-hearted, shorter videos.
I mean, we're gonna get a couple, but it's probably not gonna feel like a couple.
Not on my end, bitch. Not on my end. So as you can see, and as we've already mentioned, we are literally doing Sakamoto Ryoma. Sakamoto Ryoma was born in Kochi, which was a city in the Tosa province, January 3rd, 1836. He was a member of a low-ranking country samurai family. His family, the Sakamotos, had purchased this rank for themselves with wealth accumulated over several generations of sake brewing. But around this time in the 1830s, Tosa was still one of the strictest provinces in regards to hierarchy. And even after 3 generations, the Sakamoto family was still considered Gosei instead of Josei samurai, which just meant like lower class. Basically, they were not advancing, even though they had purchased a higher rank. When he was 12, they did briefly attempt to enroll him in a private school, but he wasn't very well suited to the academic life, apparently. Which is kind of sucks because I didn't touch on this last time, but at this point, at the end of the Tokugawa, right, samurai were not like fighting, right? Like samurai were not being used as fighters. Samurai was basically just another title that was that people had, but then they would be primarily administrators of various territories and domains. Like a man's samurai would oversee his domain while he was stuck in Edo because of the alternate attendance system, where he had to spend a year there and then a year here and then a year there, and his family would have to live there basically as like hostages, right? So samurai at this point were basically administrative. So it kind of sucks that he didn't do well in school, because he could have maybe gotten, you know, a good
Executive.
position.
They technically have a sword for a reason, but, you know, no one in this modern day actually uses it. Pretty
much. I mean, and that's not to say that these young men from, like, samurai families were not educated in swordsmanship. They were. That was still part of kind of the requirement of being a samurai. But they were primarily used as administrators during this period in Japanese history. So, when he was 14, his family sent him to be tutored in swordsmanship by Hineno Benji, who was a local samurai. And in 1853, about a year or so later, he was sent to Tokyo to further study swordsmanship and refine his skills even further, because he had proved very talented with a blade. In Tokyo, he would study under Chiba Sadakichi, who was the teacher who taught a style of Hokushin Ito, right, in terms of swordplay. Interestingly enough, this first couple of years, right, that he spent in Tokyo was right during the time that Matthew Commodore Perry brought his black ships into the Edo Bay, demanding...
It's all connected.
Yeah, demanding that the shogun allow foreign trade. So he lived through this, right? Like, he was there. By the way, I say Edo, I say Tokyo, same city, different name, different periods. Edo is Tokyo. Yeah. So in 1854, he would briefly return home to Tosa, where he would meet and talk with a man named Kawada Shoryu. And Kawada Shoryu is pretty notable because he wrote a book about the life of another Japanese man who was shipwrecked picked up by Americans and then taken to Hawaii. And because of that, he was this other Japanese guy was educated in Hawaii. And when he came back to Japan, he was almost not allowed entry. And the government demanded that they interrogate him about his life experiences outside of Japan, because at this point the Bakufu policy was so strict about people leaving Japan that if you left Japan well, first of all, you were not allowed to leave Japan, and second of all, if you left Japan, you were not coming back. No, just no.
If you're out of Japan, you better have been there on military business.
Yeah, and this is all part of that Bakufu policy that's kind of falling into kind of dissolving, right? Like as time moves along, like the alternate attendance is part of this, and the alternate attendance is why so many domains had like huge debts at this time, because it costs a lot of money to maintain 2 entire separate households and to pay for your wife and children to live in a totally separate city constantly, and then to also pay for your own household and your own domain, and then you had to pay for travel back and forth, and you weren't allowed to use carts because carts were only allowed to be used by like the shogun. You had to like walk and carry that shit. It was just not, Japan did not move forward during the Tokugawa, like the time of the Tokugawa, and it became a problem by the 1800s, like a genuine problem. So, but this Kawada Shoryo was very familiar with politics, economy, and social systems of Western countries, right? And especially America. And so he spent 2 years kind of philosophizing and discussing these things with this man before he returned to Edo for further study and to teach at the Chiba school, right? As a teacher himself. By 1858, he'd completely finished his studies and returned to Tosa and became politically active in the Sono-Joi movement, which we talked about in our last video. I don't think I need to re-explain that. Revere the emperor, expel the barbarians. In 1862, his friend T.H.E. Zuizan organized what was called the Tosa Loyalist Party, or Tosa Kinoto, right, which consisted of about 2,000 lower-class samurai members who wanted to reform the government in Tosa. And what was interesting is that Takechi Zuizan wanted to reform Tosa, but Sakamoto Ryoma thought that the entire country needed to be reformed, right? So they actually had a slight difference of opinions there. They actually had a plan in the following year to assassinate a local leader named Yoshida Toyo, and before this happened, Ryoma ended up leaving the group and returning to Edo, but he was involved, like, in the planning of this murder, right? However, when he left the group and returned to Tokyo, he was doing so without permission from his clan, right, and his domain. And at this point in time, one of the strict rules about kind of living in Japan was you had to have permission from, your clan and your domain to leave, right? Since he didn't have that, he became a ronin, right? So in Edo, he would then go on to use the alias Saitani Umetaro as he worked against the shogun behind the scenes. He participated at this point in a plot to assassinate Katsu Kaishu, which didn't actually succeed, but this man held a high position in the shogunate of the Tokugawa, and he did support modernization and westernization. However, he supported that with the caveat that the shogun still remained in power, right? He kind of had this thought process where he could see the shogunate transforming into a kind of prime minister, which wasn't gonna happen, but that's what he thought. But Kaishu actually managed to persuade Ryoma kind of not to kill him, and that they needed to increase Japan's military strength using knowledge from the West. And so Ryoma began to work with him as an assistant. In 1963, Katsu received permission to build the Kobe Naval Training Center, and he made Ryoma the head of the academy for teaching young officers. In that same year, the Choshu domain bombarded foreign ships off the coast of Shimonoseki, and a ship or two from this naval academy participated in this. And this was super not okay, because this was against the Kanagawa Treaty, right, which the shogun and the emperor had officially signed at this point from Matthew Perry. So the shogun at the time basically said, we can't have that. You can't be doing this. We agreed for this, and now you're breaking it. So in 1864, Katsu was stripped of his position and the Kobe Naval Training Center was shut down. At this point, Ryoma would flee to Kagoshima, which was part of the Satsuma domain, where there was a large anti-Tokugawa movement developing. During his time there, he brokered an alliance between Choshu and Satsuma, which would become the famous Cho-Sat alliance that would famously win the Boshin War that we talked about last time. Interestingly enough, the way he did this was that the Choshu had a large crop of rice, but were not able to buy arms because of the action they had taken against foreigners. And the Satsuma were short on rice, but they were allowed to legally buy arms. So if the Satsuma bought arms on behalf of Choshu in exchange for the rice, the two clans could unite, right? And to be clear, Choshu and Satsuma, while neither of them was a fan of the the shogunate, right, at this point, they did not share the same beliefs as to what they wanted to happen, which was why like this alliance needed to be brokered by an outside sort of neutral party, right, between them. Ryoma negotiated with them and succeeded in getting them to sign a pact in Kyoto on January 22nd, 1866. The following day, Miyoshi Shinzu, an official of the Choshu clan, and Ryoma were spending the night at the Teradiah Inn in Kyoto. And this is where the Teradiah incident occurs and where Oryo, his wife, comes into the story in a more kind of major way. He is married. This is Narasaki Ryo, also known as Oryo. This inn, the Teradiah Inn, was Ryoma's favorite, mostly because his girlfriend at the time worked there. However, the government had learned of his negotiations with the two clans and sent soldiers to attack him. So Ryoma himself and others recorded this story, but it's said that he had a tendency to like embellish it over the years. So on January 23rd, right, Oryo was taking a bath in a wooden tub at night. She saw soldiers through the window, and she ran upstairs naked to warn of the attack. Over 20 soldiers broke into the house and ran up the stairs. Ryoma used his gun, but his fingers were so badly wounded in the sword fight he could no longer shoot. In the struggle, Miyoshi, who was a skillful swordsman, wanted to continue fighting, but Ryoma decided that they needed to escape. There were more soldiers in the front of the inn, but none in the back, so they escaped out the back, and he ended up nursing his wounds at the Satsuma mansion in Kyoto, right? And Saigo, right, one of the people he knew living at this mansion as well, suggested that he go further into Satsuma for medical treatment with Oryo. Supposedly, this is the first honeymoon in Japanese history. I mean, to be fair, he did see her naked, so, now they're married. But with the help of these two powerful domains, right, after he brokered this alliance, he was able to found the private navy and trading company called the Kameyama Shachu in Nagasaki City, which would later become the Kaientai, also known as the Ocean Support Fleet, which is what the modern Japanese Navy was based on when it eventually developed, which is pretty interesting. Because that's basically what he was doing at that Kobe Naval Training School, is he was trying to create like a more modernized navy, right? So in 1866, in a conflict against the army of the Tokugawa, the Cho-Sat alliance defeated the shogunate, severely hurting the power of Edo's government. After this, he was actually no longer considered a ronin by his domain, and he was invited back to Tosa by the lord, who wanted him to participate as a negotiator in a settlement between the shogun and the emperor. Ideally, the idea was that this would result in a peaceful transfer of power with no further major conflicts. These negotiations would directly lead to the resignation of Shogun Tokugawa Yoshinobu in 1867 and the restoration of power to the Emperor Meiji. In that same year, he was attacked by supporters of the Tokugawa shogunate on December 10th at the Omiya Inn. He was with one of his friends, Nakaoka Shintaro, and they were both assassinated. Ryoma was only 33. He died that year. It's rumored that he was killed by the Shinsengumi, and the head of the Shinsengumi at the time, Kendo Isami, was punished, killed for this. However, several years later, in 1870, the Mimawariguma, which was another police force loyal to the shogunate, actually claimed to have been the ones to kill him. Regardless of any claims or accusations, true identities for the assassins have never been proven. So we don't actually know. But, I mean, I would assume, if the Mimawariguma claimed it, they probably did it. Like, they weren't getting anything out of claiming it. Like, this was not some great act. They were not getting good for doing this. They killed a man
that was a negotiator, primarily.
Exactly. Like, this was not a good thing. Interestingly enough, it was true that, this was the end to major conflicts in the transfer to the Meiji Restoration, but over the next few years, pro-Tokugawa forces continued to exact revenge upon those who had assisted in overthrowing the Tokugawa. So this is one of several assassinations that took place after this time, killing kind of notable members.
I mean, we know that the fighting with the Shinsengumi continued after.
Until 68.
Yeah.
68, 69, yeah. So Ryoma was known to be a visionary whose ideas for an independent and modern Japan included no feudal or caste systems, which was very, very much different from what the Tokugawa had been doing up till now. The Tokugawa order was almost as strict and hierarchical as the Indian caste system at this time, and they were desperately clinging to that. Merchants were the lowest of low classes, which was part of the reason why they were literally being driven down into the dirt. The government was because they had this organization that was basically the ruler, the lord, the samurai, the peasant, and then merchants were the bottom class. But increasingly over the past 200 years, merchants had been building and gaining power, buying wealth and influence, and the merchants were the ones lending to the lords, but technically they were of such a low social class, and it was not good, basically. But he was inspired by the idea written in the U.S. Constitution that all men were created equal. He was an ardent admirer of the democratic principles, especially those in use with the United States Congress and the British Parliament, as he had studied them extensively. He believed there needed to be a democratically elected bicameral legislature, a written constitution, a national army and navy formation, and regulation of exchange rates between gold and silver. Interestingly enough, they would not get a Japanese constitution until after World War II, when it was once again imposed upon them by the Americans, much like Commodore Perry imposed the Kanagawa Treaty of Friendship upon them.
Being fair, the Americans had after World War II, like, this might be the best democratization effort made in history, right?
Yeah,
here.
I mean, I'm not saying they should.
Yeah, this is not quite the same as Commodore Perry's fuck up.
Yeah, but it is funny that, they didn't actually get a constitution until forced upon them.
It's interesting that you kind of have this different view of the emperor's side here, because if you only look at it from that perspective of the Shinsengumi, you get this idea that the emperor's side is this very isolationist force in Japanese politics.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have someone like Sakamoto Ryoma here, which is like, it feels like this is less of a we shouldn't contact the outside world, more like we're fucked if we contact the outside world as we are now.
Well, and it's interesting because obviously Kaishu, right? Or Katsu Kaishu, he believed that they could use the West, right? Mm-hmm. And that's so Sono Joy, right, was revere the emperor, expel the barbarians, and it was very anti-foreigner, pro-traditional Japan. But the movement that opposed, right, Sono Joy, was one that thought that the Japanese were a resourceful enough people that they could take on all of the technological and scientific advances of the Western world and not lose their Japanese traditional heritage, right? The opposing force did not say, embrace the West. It said, embrace the West, but stay Japanese. So in some ways, they're not as opposed as you would think. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of kind of descriptions put them like opposed to one another, but they both kind of want the same thing, and that is the survival of Japanese culture and tradition. It's just that one would rather do it while also assimilating all of the advances of the rest of the world, and the other would rather do it on their own, right? So they're cross purposes for the same goal. Despite all of his progressive political opinions, he was well noted to maintain the traditional dress of samurai, with the exception of Western-style shoes, which he apparently preferred. In modern times, he's been heavily romanticized across Japanese popular culture, in movies, TV shows, and many other places. And much of what we know about him personally, including a lot of his political opinions, comes from the literal hundreds of letters of personal correspondence left behind, most of which talked about him, his opinions, his interests beyond politics, and even included a lot of art that he drew in his spare time. So we know, like, surprisingly, if you were to go and read through, like, all of the letters and stuff that he left behind, we have a pretty kind of good insight into this man and kind of what he felt. And he definitely felt that Japan could be brought forward into modernity and kind of drop all of the bad, but not lose its ability to be Japan, which is really would be the goal of any modernization, and it's increasingly hard in the cases of places like India, China, or Japan, where you have these massive influences from the British and other Western nations, right? Like you talk about the three of them, and on a sliding scale, right? India was directly colonized by the British, right? China was controlled by the British for a long time with a colony, but were not colonized. And then Japan was kind of on this like farthest end of the colonial scale, where there was a lot of European influence, but it was not colonization. There were no colonies per se. And because of that, Japan was in a lot of ways the most successful of the three, right, comparatively, in kind of moving forward into modernity, with the little exception of the snafu that was the 1930s and 40s, that didn't work out so well. But like other places struggled much harder to kind of unify and resist like control of Western countries. I mean, in India, it was so hard for them to come together as a single national unit, whereas Japan already existed as a national unit per se in a way that India didn't. India was 100 different languages, 100 different cultures, all ruled over by a people, but not one combined people being ruled. Whereas Japan, by the time the Tokugawa had come around, Japan was Japanese. This was already a nation. So it was just a matter of kind of accepting that modernity was coming, and they weren't going to be able to stop it. They just weren't.
Yeah, so before we get into it, I know you have something that you've been holding on to. Did you present that at this point in the past for our viewers, but in the future as well? Or are we did you want to show them today?
What about who?
Here.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know where it's at.
It's over here. It's over here. Hey, guys. Guess what I got? It's a little Hassan of Serenity.
Yeah.
She's kind of cool. Like, I love her pose. She's very dynamic, Yeah.
Just
the
fun.
newest addition to the Fate family.
Not one I expected.
No, yeah, because I found her, Mash, and BB at used at a comic book store I was at recently. And I don't know who BB is, but I saw a character named BB and I was like, oh, that tells me nothing.
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all. Well, I mean, I kind of know what BB is.
Kinda. We
mentioned about it in the
we mentioned that she's like the primary moon cancer.
Yeah,
Ganesha.
yeah, because when we talked about Ganesha,
But
that's it.
One day.
Yeah.
One day. But
Yeah.
before
also, I wanted to say, so Sakamoto Ryoma is one of a few kind of people of this era that we actually have several photos of, like throughout his life. Like this man did have several photos taken of him, and he, even though he died young. So I mean, this is what he looked like. Also, look at them Western style shoes. Man's wearing like fucking Oxfords down there.
he died young, but
33.
I don't know if his hair is slicked back, but man, I think he kind of avoided going bald in his old age.
It looks like that shaved style. Like it looks like
Maybe.
it's deliberately been pulled back.
I don't know. I see a little bit of a widow's peak there.
No, I think that's just the angle. Oh no.
No. He's not bald in Fate. I will assure you that. That was just something I'm noticing.
Okay.
And that maybe could just be a trick of the angle.
I think it's just a trick of the angle.
Before I really get into Fate here, there's one thing I really kind of neglected to mention that's probably important to mention regarding servants. So, before we get into it, Sakamoto Ryoma in Fate is a Guda servant.
Okay. Yeah, because all the Shinsengumi were, right?
Yeah, so it hasn't really been useful up to yet, but it's going to be more apparent at this point to hardcore Fate fans. Koha-Ace and other related properties to Guda do not perfectly match up with the lore of the rest of the Fate franchise. So many of the characters are considered different in Guda than they would be in normal Fate. We kind of got a hint of that when I showed you that joke, Real Deal Nobunaga. That is actually a thing, where Nobu is not as Nobu would be in Fate proper. We have not seen Type Moon's proper Nobunaga, more or less.
Okay. So, are you telling me that this is not the Sakamoto Ryoma we could someday have?
We could have another Sakamoto Ryoma one day in the long future.
Okay.
That's just completely different than this.
Okay.
The exact level of difference is not something we've really seen play out yet, though, so I don't want to say it's going to be entirely different. It could be a slight variation, or they just might be like less gag-focused. But that is something worthy of note, especially as we get into a certain character here. All right, so are you ready?
Yeah, am I clicking here?
Yep. So meet Sakamoto Ryoma Rider.
Hang on.
Yes, he looks like Michael Jackson dash Muzan.
No. He kind of looks like Ling. A little bit, doesn't he?
Kinda.
See, this is who I thought of. I thought of Ling.
Now, I'm not going to... Normally, I would have you click into the FGO wiki for more artwork, but I'm going to actually instead have you click into Oreo there as well.
Okay.
Because Oreo is also part of the same exact servant. They're summoned as a pair.
Okay.
So now
they're rider together, or...
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's here. Oh, I see. She's behind him. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
They're a welfare, so we only have a couple artwork.
I love this. Oh, nice.
So let me explain Oreo here.
That's pretty cool looking. I'm getting some like ghosty vibes.
There's some shit going on here.
There's some shit. I'm getting some ghosty, maybe some snaky vibes per se.
Oreo here is why it's so important to make the distinguishment between Gouda Gouda and regular Fate.
Okay.
Because there is some statement in Fate or in FGO that Oreo is not the historical woman.
Okay.
That it is unclear whether or not that's saying that they just share the same nickname. And or if they're saying that the Gouda Gouda timeline is just that drastically different from the regular timeline.
So it's either this is someone else using the same nickname, or that he and Oreo never had the relationship that they have in history.
Where their relationship in history was kind of the same, but like a big difference we'll get into in a minute is that Oreo did not remarry in Gouda Gouda timelines.
Oh,
not
okay.
this Oreo.
Yeah,
that's the thing is
because Oreo remarries and lives for like another 30 years.
Yeah,
yeah.
They're still
40?
in Gouda Gouda and like definitely romantically connected.
Okay.
So her deal is that when Ryoma was young, he studied the Ame no Sakahoko. I believe that's actually something he did in history as well. It's one of the things he did study.
I think that's the Hokushin Ito.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a spear that mythologically was used by Izanagi and Izanami. When he was studying it, he accidentally freed an Orochi that was sealed by the spear. That Orochi would be released onto the world,
demon?
but would find, Ryoma fascinating and follow him, eventually falling in love with him and taking on the guise of a human.
Okay.
She's an eccentric little gremlin with saliva that can heal any wound. She has a love of eating frogs and the ability to become a serpent dragon. She would, after Ryoma's death, fall into a despair at being unable to protect him and eventually sink herself beneath the ocean.
Oh, see, while a master of the Hokushin Ito style of swordplay. Okay. Yeah. Hokushin Ito-ryu.
Yeah, so if you want to take a look at the relationships here.
Interesting. I do love that she's just a little snaky gremlin. I'm a big fan.
She is one of my favorite characters in Gouda Gouda.
I'm a big fan. Okay, Okada Izo, who we haven't seen. How did it... Okay. Well,
oh, look, another dual-voiced one.
Ryoma. It's been a while, Izo-san. Hold on. Wait. Would you sheath your katana? While we are here, I wish we could get along like we did in the past. Can I hit this guy? Oda Nobunaga. We meet again, Demon King of the Sixth Heaven, Lord Oda Nobunaga. Thanks for that time. What's wrong, Oreo-san? Oi! This guy is somehow cheating. Well, if it isn't Okita-kun... Well, to have that Okita-kun as an ally is reassuring. This one looks weak. Stop that, really! Okay, Okita Soji, alter. I see, you might still have some things left to do. Then I shall see to it as well. It's unrelated, but your katana, isn't it too large? It'll get stuck in the door. Fucking troll. To think we'd fight alongside the Demon Vice leader. I previously intended to ask for help from Shinsengumi, but to think it would come true in this manner. Oi, that takuan looks tasty. Hand one over. And then Francis Drake. Captain Drake, the grand pirate who sailed around the world. Yeah, I like that kind of thing. Can you let me ride your boat sometime? Ryoma really likes foreign ships. True. Fun fact, so Kaishu Kenshi, right? He was the first Japanese captain to sail a steamboat across the Pacific, like a Japanese owned steamship, I think, across the Pacific. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Is Oreo gonna have different lines?
No, because they are just one servant. I don't think they should, at least.
I just figured I'd look. Okay, yeah, no. Nah. Interesting. Okay.
Oh, yeah, she also loves the double peace fingers. You kind of saw that in her art.
Yeah, I did. All right. Okay. So, abilities?
Oh, yeah, some artwork up here, too.
Oh, I do. I have a lot of artwork. Ooh. Hey. Snaky lady.
Because they're also featured in Red Line, so you get to see some...
Yeah. Oh. Man, it looks so good. Is that who I think that is?
Yes, that is Okita.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that art. Yep. Now I get who we were seeing in a bunch of those arts. Because I saw a bunch of these in Okita's. Yeah.
I wonder if we'll see that artwork. No, we are not going to see that artwork. Most likely.
All right.
So, in type Redline, just because this is funny, I guess this is technically abilities. I mentioned the healing saliva. Oreo has, like, no grace regarding that. Like, someone had their fingers actually cut off, and Oreo just sticks the entire like the cut off fingers in the hand in her mouth and just sucks on them to heal without warning the person.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So, these two are both equally the rider-servant in relationship and will both fight. Oreo will fight barehanded and using her abilities as an Orochi. Ryoma has a katana and uses that as his primary weapon, but I believe he also has a gun.
Yeah, it does say that. It says his armaments are the katana Mutsu no Kami Yoshiyuki and a pistol. He's a master of the Hokushin Ituryu style of swordplay, which he uses proficiently. Yeah. He's got riding, magic resistance, that makes sense. Hero of the Restoration. Skill given to Ryoma for crossing of the turbulent Bakumatsu period and contributions to the Meiji Restoration. A grand revolution on a scale rarely seen in history. That's kind of true. Also, I haven't used the term Bakumatsu a lot, and it's been in all the wikis, and I've just been lazy. I haven't been using it because I've been saying like the time of the Tokugawa, or like the Tokugawa era, and then the Meiji as like two separate things. But like Bakumatsu literally just means like that time, like when things were moving from one to the other, like when things were in upheaval, right? It's just the specific period name. So I didn't mention this, but this was actually something he wrote. The 8 proposals while shipboard. So I remember reading about these when I was doing research, but basically each of the texts, each of the 8 proposals was, his ideas of how to reform Japan and create like a democratic, bicameral, constitutional legislature that was, presented all men equal and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's pretty cool. Charisma, okay.
Like a soaring dragon.
Oreo takes the form of a dragon and wields her power.
Yeah, that's it.
That's pretty funny. Oh, look. There's her abilities. Telephone pole.
Fish. All right.
Personal skills she's got. She has a few.
Yeah.
Personal skills. Rampage, divinity, monstrous strength. Okay. All right.
So, yeah.
Now, I've seen a few times that he can be summoned as a Lancer.
We'll get to that in a second. I guess it is important to mention here that rider form of him here is a counter guardian.
Okay.
It's kind of like the Okita deal, except in reverse.
Yeah.
Where he became a counter guardian, but he was just that shy of being able to be a heroic spirit.
Okay.
Or something along those lines. That hasn't actually come out in NA yet, so I could be unclear on that.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll go ahead and... Actually, I think it should be safe to show you the down here, the dragon restoration.
Mm-hmm.
This is safe. That's what Orio's dragon form looks like.
Okay.
But here, let's just go ahead and open up the NP.
Yeah. All right.
我なすことは我のみぞ知る。名がかける。竜が如く。
Hit him real good.
Yep.
Nice.
So yeah, that is Ryoma Rider.
So I noticed mentions of Lancer. So obviously I know the next thing we're tackling is Lancer.
Yeah.
And you just did bring up the spear to me. So there is a story that supposedly he was bold enough to pull the spear out of the mountain when he visited Mount Takachiho no Mine, right? And he later wrote about this to his elder sister, which is currently in the collection of the Sakamoto Ryoma Memorial Museum in Kochi Prefecture, right? And it's also says that the spear he pulled, right, the version of it was broken later by a volcanic eruption, and the one that exists now is just a replica, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
that's why I mean, like, he wrote a lot of shit in his personal letters.
yeah.
Yeah. Also, apparently, when he left Tosa and became a Ronin, one of his sisters committed suicide out of shame.
Woof.
For him becoming Ronin. So he had several.
So, Ryoma, when not summoned as a counter guardian, would be summoned as the Lancer we're going to see next.
Do we have him in campaign?
No, not yet.
Oh,
So-
Orio's still there.
Kind of.
Is she the Lance?
Let's get into that here. So, as I mentioned
Oh.
before, so you could probably assume what the Lance is, why he's a Lancer.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and go through the art if you want.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Aw. That's really pretty.
It's just a 4-sized artwork.
He looks so happy in this one. Yeah.
So, normally, when summoned as a Lancer, Ryoma would not have Oreo with him. But due to the events of one of the Guda Guda incidents, Rider Ryoma is able to awaken the living Oreo in the spear. So, subsequent summonings of the Lancer Ryoma now have Oreo as it should.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Ryoma, so I guess you can look at the relationships here.
Okay. Alright, Okada Izo. I'm really happy to be able to fight side by side with Izo-san. I'm truly Hey, wait, whoa, wait one moment. Put the sword down, okay? Sorry, I'm really sorry. That was careless of me, okay? Oh, Oreo-san is not happy at all. Don't get me wrong. Just where did you learn that? Okay, Nobunaga Avenger. Lord Nobunaga of the Demon King of the Sixth Heaven, huh? Isn't she literally just the Demon King Nobunaga? I thought I was summoned here to fight against Lord Nobunaga, but it seems like I'm wrong, huh? Ryoma, I think you're really mistaken. Is that so? Well, the thing about the counterforce and being a counter guardian is only half the story after all. We're here now out of our own free will. I'm sure that I'm not mistaken about that. Though if we're gonna fight, we're absolutely win. Alright, Nagao Kage Tora! After Lord Nobunaga, now it's Lord Kenshin who appeared, huh? I wonder if this will finally be too much for a heroic spirit of my rank to keep up with. Don't worry, Oreo-san is 100 times better than them. If that's the case, then I'm relieved. Aw. Izume no Okuni? Oh, if it isn't Okuni-san, we've both been through a lot, but I look forward to working with you. That guy behind you is pretty strong, huh? I'm also looking forward to your performance here in Chaldea. If that's the case, then Oreo-san will join too. Alright, Okita Solji Altar. I see. So this is the form in which you can display your power to the fullest. Yeah, you are without a doubt a counter guardian from another world, aren't you? I see, so that's how you came to be. By the way, that little thing beside you looks tasty. You probably won't get away with just a stomachache if you eat them, so let's not do that, okay?
You know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Saito Hajime. The captain of the Shinsengumi's third squad, Saito Hajime. A member of the Shinsengumi who lived until the Meiji era. Huh? I wish I could have seen the Meiji era, too. Ryoma, sorry. No, I didn't mean it like that. Don't worry about it.
Because he died just before the Meiji era.
Literally months after after the agreement was signed and the Yoshinobu stepped down. Okay, Voyager. Voyager, a heroic spirit that went on a journey to the Sea of Stars, I see. So humans can now travel towards the distant skies, huh? That would be quite difficult, even for Oryo-san. But if it's just to the moon, then maybe I can do it. Traveling to the moon with Oryo-san, huh? That sounds fun. Moon! Damn, why you gotta be so hot? I mean, he's hot in both versions, but he's especially hot in this one. Is this newer?
Yes, this is much newer.
Okay. Now I'm going to take a look at some concept art. Since we have it. Oh, interesting. Oh. Okay. Alright.
So, Ryoma obviously uses the spear in combat, but he'll also take advantage of his katana and a pistol. Oryo also seems to have the ability in this form to go Super Saiyan, taking on the form of Super Oryu. She can use...
Please tell me it goes blonde hair spiked up.
You actually saw some
It's the white hair, I know. But it would have been so funny if it had been actually Super Saiyan.
She can do this using the power of the spear granted from her through Ryoma. Once she's using that, her power is just shy of godhood.
Okay. So I've got magic resistance and riding. Shape shift, great snake. That must be Oryo. Dragon of the Restoration, a man who was once called a dragon in human form. Alright. Great White Snake of Takachiho. That's the mountain. Yep. And Ameno Sakahoko, pair. Okay. The Spear of Light descended from the heavens. Supposedly this spear was said to be used by Izanami and Izanagi to kind of sew up the earth and to kind of create Japan?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, before I get into his big explosive NP, I'm going to go into Ameno Sakahoko.
Yep.
So, Ryoma's spear, he has that spear in all the weapons I just mentioned, but the spear can also become different weapons or even items that the user's will.
Okay. So it's kind of like Rama's thing.
That's what all this is up here, I believe.
That's what I figured this was when I get, because there's the pistol, there's the katana, spears.
Gun sword.
Oh my god, it is a gun sword. What the fuck? Christ.
So, and then his other NP is O Dragon Conqueror the Expanses of Watatsumi. Here Oryo becomes capable of becoming a white dragon with the ability to soar the skies. She's even more powerful, but still chooses to be with Ryoma.
Oh, okay. Can I close this tab?
Yeah.
Alright, and I think you have...
I have 2 versions of this to show.
Oh!
I don't know what the other version is, I just saw that it was an alt. One of those rare instances.
Oh. Looking good, Sakamoto Ryoma. It kind of looks like a Pokemon.
A little bit.
Like one of the legendaries. Yeah.
Oreo has evolved.
Your Oreo has evolved. What does evolved Oreo become? Oreo. Oh, it's... She's speaking. Oh. I think it's just her. Like
yeah, it's just her speaking.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
Goddamn.
That is
so light.
Sakamoto Ryoma.
I mean, we still have to do, obviously, you know, cards, but damn.
You're not used to this only hitting an hour shit or 45 minutes.
No, I'm very much not. Interesting. Oh, I like that it's a Smith & Wesson. That's interesting. Because I think, canonically, Smith & Wesson revolvers existed. I think that might be like...
an actual thing.
I mean, I could be wrong, obviously, but... Oh, yay, they have a Grail League.
Oh, you just clicked into the game.
Oh, that was stupid. I should have just clicked that. Look, she's got beer. Oryo-ya.
Oryo-ya.
Aw. Love this. Love this for them. Okay. What is with this new fucking expression sheet?
Okay, the reason why that one's so long is because you have Oreo and Ryoma making different expressions at different times.
Oh, we have a fair amount of extra arts, actually.
We have a fucking GIF.
Oh, look at that.
Piece of piece.
Aw. They look so happy. Ow! My thirst is gonna take me out.
Oreo just smacked you for...
Genuinely. Oh. Cute. Yeah. That's fucking hilarious. Alright, craft essences. Look, guys, I've learned to use the clicker.
Knick-Knack hasn't.
That's true, you haven't. Alright. Sakamoto Detective Bureau. Oh, look at the books. I just clicked the fuck into that, didn't I? That didn't open as a pop-out.
It was an accident. Sometimes it doesn't load right.
Okay. Located in a modern-style building in a traditional section of Tokyo, the office's motto is fast, honest, and satisfactory. They will take any case from investing infidelities to searching for a lost cat, and it will be money well spent. Please stop by and inquire at your convenience. Oh, don't mind the woman in the black sailor's uniform. She's just a little off and stands out from the times. Okay. I like it. Yeah, it's doing that for all of them.
Might just be a site bug.
I think it's a site bug because look, they don't have the normal border. But look at that! Gura Gura Tosa! Man, I never met...
that's gonna...
Do I not know that person?
Nope.
Oh, it's not what's his face from the last video?
Nope.
Okay, well then I know the person. An incident on a certain mountain. I had every intention of tricking and devouring him. I was thinking how to trick this seemingly foolish human into pulling this cursed spear out, and how to eat him when he did. But he didn't even give me time to say anything, just pulled the spear out without a moment's hesitation. Despite the fact that I had spent grueling years harboring so much hatred and resentment towards the ones who had sealed me away, this human had the gall to just say, "Had a rough time, huh?" Then he simply climbed back down the mountain. When he said this so casually, it was like it was nothing. I started to think of it that way too. I forgot all about those wretched humans who sealed me away. As I was thinking about all that, the face of that silly human flashed across my mind, and it suddenly became rather unforgettable to me. I then realized that I had forgotten to devour him, and so I decided I would pursue him. This is just a story of an incident at that mountain. Pocket watch and frog chocolate. A Valentine's gift from Sakamoto Ryoma and Valentine's Day chocolate from Oreo. An imported pocket watch from their business, along with chocolate frogs made by Oreo. Don't worry, they aren't any actual real frogs in the chocolates, though Oreo didn't actually know there shouldn't be. Scary. It's always been my dream to set up a shop that handles foreign products like this. Put Oreo's chocolate frog in the lineup too? Fine, I'll put them out on the storefront for all to see. This is the story of the dragon and the giant serpent's dream shop that never came true. Interestingly enough, before he died, after he brokered the changeover in government, he was asked why he didn't name himself to be like one of the major officials in the coming era or whatever. And he said something along the lines of he wanted to conduct like mercantile trade with the West, and he didn't want to deal with the red tape of also being a politician. So this is pretty interesting.
He wanted to open up a store.
Yeah. Well, he wanted to lead
open
a merchant
up shop,
a merchant marine.
Merchant to go.
Well, it's fun fact. He didn't actually, when he started that the Kaientai, right?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't actually own any ships. What he would do is he would charter ships, and then volunteer to take cargo. He supplied the officers, and the officers were better trained than most other men, right, on these bigger ships. And so several places like Satsuma would hire him to charter. You know, like, we'll take your officers, you charter the cargo, and make your profit. A riot of cherry blossoms.
I can look if you want to scroll down.
No, too late. Heroic Spirit Festival wear. We don't get enough of these days. I need more. Love this. Glorious. Oh. Oh, look at that. The Demon King of the Sixth Heaven. There was nothing there anymore. So much blood has flown to the land beyond. The thing that emerges from our destination. Would it be an Oni or would it turn out to be a snake? Even so, humans must go on so that we can make our choices once again. It's not here. All right, take a look.
You're safe.
Okay. He does not consent to this. He also does not acknowledge this. Having said that, he has no choice but to do it. That's life for you. At times like these, one should take a short tea break. By the way, remember that some unreasonable stuffs you did not remember doing and paying for your own mistake are as different as night and day. Okay, and now Lancer. Oh, look at that. Look at that dragon tattoo, basically. That looks hella cool.
They're holding hands.
Yep, she's got a baseball bat, too. She's wearing a little dress. She's ready to go. I think it's just this. Maybe one other piece. That's cute. That's the other piece. Aww.
The hand puppet.
All the eyes. The sheer amount of eyes.
She got a Muppet.
I
Sekhie.
hate it. Oh, okay. An incident at a certain sea. That spear is the light of the gods that fell from the heavens, to welcome mankind to the gods, to welcome the Orochi to the dragons. Abhorred and shunned as an aberrant nation devourer, feeding on that anger, grief, and resentment. The grudge was supposed to consume her body, eventually turning her into a calamity that could devour the nation. But that all went away with a few words from one man. Who knows if that was a good or bad thing for the aberrant nation devourer. But none of that mattered to those two. All they wanted was to be together forever and ever. That was all that mattered. And that wish and promise were finally fulfilled, beyond their unfortunate destiny. Even if it was just an ephemeral illusion, they can still hear one another's voices. I'm thankful to have met you. This was an incident that occurred at a particular sea. Nice. And White Oath. See, now this would remind me of Muzan. It's the little things, you know? Return gift from Sakamoto, Ryoma, and Oryo-san. The white hat that Ryoma wore. While it's true that it is a hat Ryoma wore to hide his true name, it is also something he likes. Even though it is a special order made, it seems like he owns several spares. The scale of the great serpent Takachiho, a white shining scale so beautiful it makes people think they were looking at a precious gem. It is said that those who possess this scale can command the white great serpent once throughout their entire life. Even if the world became your enemy, this oath will remain with you forever. Nice. Nice.
So yeah, Ryoma and Oreo.
Yeah.
OTP.
OTP. I mean, but also I'd like to get in the middle of that.
Threesome question mark?
Yeah, you put a question mark as if there needs to be a question mark. The question mark is not to the activity. It's the offer I am making. Much like Gilgamesh and Kidu a few weeks back. So coming up next is the first of the videos from our stream.
Yeah, those eagle-eyed viewers are already going to know what comes next.
Well, those of you who caught the stream at the right time will know what comes next.
Yeah.
Yeah. But our next 3 reacts will all have been recorded on the live stream on July 8th. So technically, we'll see you back after that for our next new servant.
And for those of you that were too slow or decided to skip our wonderful live stream that we haven't done yet.
Let's do the wave!
Welcome to that. You'll enjoy. I hope you enjoy those. Yeah.
Like, comment, subscribe.